Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning once again to another episode of Tea Talk with Annie. Now, today's tea we are having is just some simple clove tea. And if you know the benefits of cloves, you would want to drink this tea as well. So, without too much, oh, this tastes so good. Without too much chat, we are going to get started with our topic. I am so happy. Truthfully speaking, I'm so happy that I stopped drinking over 20 years ago. Because when I had to do the research for this topic, I said, I thank you. I said, I thank you that you just took me out of that and stopped me from drinking. Because truthfully speaking, I was not going down the right road. And then, on top of that, I wondered why I wasn't feeling my intuitions and I wasn't feeling certain things anymore. And now I know why. So if you want to know why too, you stay till the end of this topic, because I'm not going to put any chapters in this, because I do not want people to jump forward to get lost or to miss something or something like that. But I jot down a few bullet points here so that it could keep me on track, because I got sometimes the tendency of going off track and going off on a tantrum. So I really wanted to keep on track. When this topic was given to me this week, I went to my daughter and I said, I think I'm going to do a topic on drinking. She said, Mommy, that's a good idea. And that sort of boosts me and give me the encouragement to want to come and bring it even more. So I spent hours of research looking for certain things. And first of all, the first thing we have to do is to start with the history of alcohol. And the history of alcohol during this was around, put it this way, this was around for centuries. Alcohol was around for a long time. It was around from, the time of the Egyptians, the Samaritans, and the Roman Empire. It was around for a long time. So this is nothing new. And one thing I always say, I just love the taste of this tea. I know, I get sidetracked, but y'all need to drink some clove tea. I mean, this tea tastes, wow, so good. So did you get your tea yet? I know that my introduction was going on, but I was waiting for y'all to get your tea. So I hope you got your tea, and come now and sit down and have a chat with me. I don't normally introduce myself like this, but what I'm going to say is peace and favor to you. And I am Annette, aka Annie. So I think from now on, I'm going to start introducing myself that way, because I looked up yesterday, I couldn't remember, I know it was graceful, full of grace. I looked up yesterday the meaning to my name, and it says, who did that? Who does that? Did you do that? And it said, grace or favor. And I said, well, if my name says grace or favor, probably I should start using my name, because every time somebody call me by my name, they're speaking that over my life. And I heard my mom said that. My mom said that to us a long time ago. Because one thing she said is that the sweetest song a person can hear is their name. And that is such a true thing. When somebody calls you by your name, it's something about that gives you that boost and encouragement. So, and what we're going to do now, we're going to start this topic, but we are going to start from the history. And did you know that alcohol had another name, and it was called al-kuhl? And you know what that means in Arabic? That means body eating spirits. And I said, oh my word, when I was growing up, a little girl, I'm from Barbados. So in Barbados, they had a shop or many shops, rum shops, in every village. So the little gap that I lived through, they had a rum shop to the bottom and they had one to the top. And you know, these men, after their work and on weekends and stuff like that, I would, as a little girl, I go there to buy biscuits or sweeties or something. And they had a section specially for the men, the basically the rum drinkers. So they had like a little partition guarded off from the actual shop. But as a little girl, I could still peep through and see the men behind there drinking and talking and having a good time and all kinds of things. And to me, that looked like so much fun. You know, maybe when I grow up, I'm going to do that. That looks like fun. So I, I used to watch that as a child. And not only that, but my because I lived with my grand when I was little, growing up, probably as a teenager. My gran, I used to hear, like, she would call the men, like, if they were passing, she would call the men and she would say, whatever his name is, or say, if he say Rudolph or Ralph or whatever, you want some spirits? I got some spirits inside of here. And I used to say to myself, why is she calling this thing spirits? But apparently that was a name that came through the generations for years and years and years. It was always called spirits. I just couldn't understand why they used to call them spirits. But I used to hear her, calling the men, come and get some spirits. And I said, no, looking back at it, these older generation, they had so much wisdom, because when I look back at it and I look back at all the different things that we younger people had forgotten because we got dumbed down by the elites and the people that are basically in charge of this world, we got dumbed down so much and we got programmed so much into the matrix, is that we don't even know our heads from our tails. But I have so much research here on this that I don't even think I can be able to get through all in like one episode. So what I am going to do is definitely divide this into two, or if necessary, I'm going to divide it into three. But it is like, I mean, this tea set tastes so good, guys. Y'all really need to try clove tea. Y'all really need to try this tea. And clove is good for bad breath as well. And it's good for the teeth. It's good for the skin. It's good for the hair. It's good for so much things. And it tastes so good, really and truthfully, you don't even have to put any sugar in it. But anyway, getting off the topic. What we are going to discuss now is the history. And I'm going to put on my glasses so I can see what I have here. Because let's look at what I have. All right. As I told you, the name is called Al-kuhl, and I'm going to put the spelling up there for you. And it is, something could call it flesh-eating spirit or body-eating spirit. It doesn't matter. But it originally referred to as a dark powder to darken the eyes. Remember in the ancient times, the Egyptians really loved putting this dark thing around their eyes. I know, seeing pictures and seeing the books and all those things, I know that they used to love to put this dark powder around their eyes. And actually, that was the al-khul. And it is now found today as coal, what we would call coal alcohol. You could make alcohol out of fruits. You could make it out of certain things. I know my grand used to make apple wine. We had a large apple tree, and she used to make apple wine. I never tasted it because I was like too young, so they never let me taste it, but I smell it, and it smelled really nice, and it seems though it was a nice wine. But let's go into the topic now. And it says here, the Samaritans, the Egyptians, and the Greek used alcohol as a gift from the gods, small g gods, of course. While alcohol was revered as a link to the divine. You hear that? No, you see, we have gotten away from this, and I am basically trying to get back to where I am designed to be. And when I say that, I always tell y'all that I can feel energy, and I can feel people's energy. And sometimes I feel as though I have a lot of energy in my body. There was once I was at a Bible study, and this lady said to me, and I thought she was just joking, but this lady said to me that I can see the glow around your head. That was, when I was really, 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 really into it. And I said, it's amazing because she could see that. And I said to myself, I wish I could see it too. But I guess it's because she was tapping in to her divine, and she was tapping into her energy, the energy that she needs to be tapping into. And what alcohol does, alcohol dumbens that energy. Now, I have lots of scripture verses here that talks about alcohol in the Bible and what it does. But what I'm going to be saying here as well is same thing that the Bible says that alcohol does. So, and she she was really tapping into her divine, that she could see things, tapping into her energy. So years ago, I used to be able to see things. And I told y'all this before. For those of you that were here with me from before, I used to be able to see things. I felt closer to what people call, what people call God. I call Yah. And uh, I'm going to do a teaching or tea talk on that as well. Why? I think because somebody asked me to do that. So I'm going to do that as well. But I felt, the closeness so much. And truthfully speaking, while, when I backslide and different things from the church, and I drifted away and I started drinking and going out and doing things and all kinds of things, I realized I'm not feeling that, I'm not feeling that connection like I did. The way how I used to describe myself, which I did not even know why I was describing myself that way, but you get me? I didn't even know why I was describing myself that way, but I described myself as a wanderer on the earth because that's how I felt. I felt like just a wanderer on the earth. I didn't feel the connection that I needed to feel to anything. So I felt as though I was just in a fog. And in doing the research, I realized why I was feeling that way. And when we go through later, I'm going to tell you why you feel that way as well. And I do these topics because I wish that I had somebody to tell me all the things that I am telling you. Because if I had somebody to tell me all these things, I probably would not go in the directions in life that I did. But I had nobody. I had nobody to pray for me and nobody to tell me what I am telling y'all now, and the wisdom that I am trying, not even trying, that I am sending out there. Because our lives, and this is what I would always say, that I wanna help people with their mind, spirit, and their body, not knowing that there's so much things that we do that wants to take our soul, basically wants to take our soul. So in Egypt, the pharaohs, they encouraged drinking. And they encouraged drinking because they wanted to maintain control over their people. So basically their entire population, they manipulated that wine was a gift from Cyrus, using it to reinforce their power. And that is in Egypt. And because they wanted everybody in a state of, as I said, fog, or like how I was feeling, like I was just there. And we have to remember that, and this is something that I would have said before too, the enemy doesn't come with any new tricks. So there's spirits, and they could come down centuries and centuries and centuries in advance, but they're the same spirit. So you would find that the same spirit will be doing the same thing centuries later, but it is not that it is anything new. It is something coming through the generations from centuries. So the basically the elites of today do the same thing. They've dumped alcohol in different places, and when they dump alcohol in different places, anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself. All right, I really don't want to get ahead of myself. So this technique was happening for thousands of years, because basically spirit could be the spirit of the fallen angels. It could be the spirit of the Nephilims. When coming to the Americas, they also brought alcohol. Alcohol was a technique to destroy the indigenous people worldwide. In North America, European settlers brought bottles of alcohol alongside the diseases and the guns and everything else that they brought. Y'all would have already known about all the diseases and everything that they brought to the indigenous people, because the indigenous people is who had to teach them how to bathe and all kinds of things, because they never bathe. So, and guns. The Native American civilization was colonized like that. If you hear some of the testimonies of the indigenous people along with the alcohol, it came the violence and everything in tearing, and that's what tear like the families and different things apart. And Habakkuk 2:16 says basically, drinking leads to shame. So when you drink, you could, it just leads to shame, because you could embarrass yourself in many ways. And trust me, if I tell you these stories, but we're going to go through some of those things further down, because let's look at Africa now. Now they took this thing, they took it all over, basically, because don't think that it was just a nice gesture or a friendly gesture or something like that. Don't think it was that, because it really wasn't that. It was a way of controlling the people that you want to colonize. And if you want to control them, you take away the spirit filled nature and the energy, and you dumb them down, and you are able to control them. Because at the end of the day, all we talk about all the time is control. Because everything is to control. Because we live in a matrix, and we either have to take the red pill or the blue pill. And by the way, I'm wearing red tonight because for those of you that know me, know that red is my favorite color. And I just decided to wear red tonight. All right. So in Africa, in Africa they had their own sacred rituals and everything like that bound the communities for centuries. But when they said they had their own rituals after the um, Americas, or after the Europeans landed in Africa, what happened is that all of the sacred, I don't want to use the word rituals. I use the word rituals just now, but I don't want to use that word. But all of these sacred philosophies and different things like that that they used to do, that kept them in tune with the divine and kept them in tune to the universe the way how they should be in tune to the universe. They they and we call it, we say God, we say yeah, we say certain things, but they had their own philosophies. And then when the alcohol came in, it basically dumbed them down, because what alcohol does is that it affects, and I learned this when I was at the drug rehab, because I worked at a drug rehab in Barbados for 5.5 years. And although I was basically the office manager and doing the accounts and stuff like that there, I still had to learn so we did a lot of different courses and different things, because I still had to learn stuff about what I was dealing with. And one thing I realized is that those men, because it was a men's living facility. And one thing I realized is that those men they were some of the nicest people, but they were just stuck. It was something about them that they couldn't shake. It was just something that they couldn't shake. So I learned this, that what the drugs and alcohol does. Alcohol, by the way, is the worst drug of all. And that is the one that they made legal. And that one is the worst drug of all. They made it look pretty and nice and sweet and all that. You see what I tell you? I tell you all that. I just go sidetrack. I was telling a story and something else came to my head and I started to talk about that. I tell you all that. I tell you all that. I just, oh my gosh, that's why I love me, because there's nobody else like me. And anyway, so they told us that it affects the brain, and when you start using the drugs or whatever, it's whatever age you started to use those drugs at, your brain basically, or the alcohol too, your brain basically stays that way. It stays to that point. And that's why sometimes you would notice that a lot of people are not very mature. They might be in a man's body or in a woman's body or whatever, grown up body, but they haven't really matured that much mentally. And that is because of the brain being afraid by this whole alcohol and everything else. Right? And I'm doing the history first before I get on to anything else. And that is basically how the Africans lost their cultural identity and their spiritual connections that sustain these societies. All right. So in Australia, they did the same thing in Australia, and they introduced the alcohol to the Aborigines, the Aborigine community, and it is just, it is, to me, I just think it is sad, and it erode the traditional values that guided these people for over thousands and thousands and thousands of years, leading to widespread addiction and cultural erosion, right? This is like, sometimes, if you listen to the testimonies of some of the older generation, and I'm not even talking about necessarily the older generation from those times and things like that, but I'm talking about even like with my grand and my great grand, when I barely knew her as a little girl, um when I was a little girl, and I just remember her having this very, very fair skin. She was staying in long, long silk, um, what you call it, salt or pepper, but more salt than pepper though. And very, very, very beautiful woman. Like, if I, obviously I was a little girl, so you don't be interested in certain things, but I wish I knew my history a little bit more than I do know it. I wish I were in a position now to sit down and listen to some of those older generation, like my great grand and my grandmother and all those things. And I always said that they they leave this earth, and it's as though they were never even here. And I don't even think that they were able to tap into their true identity and their true self. So that's why I want to tap into my true identity, my true self. And I realize that I when I stopped drinking the alcohol, I started back feeling and seeing, I started back feeling more of the energy that I had, and I started seeing things differently, seeing life differently, all those things. But unfortunately, it was, I just wish that it was a little earlier. So that's why I am helping y'all basically. Um, so let's look at, we were talking about the Aborigines, right? And that is what happened with the indigenous people, and they talk about the violence that occurred and all kinds of things. And I know this is true because when people drink alcohol, and as I tell you, or if I didn't tell you, I can't remember if I told you, but people that drink alcohol, like in my family, I had a lot of people in my family that drank alcohol. My mom drank alcohol, and I do believe it took her to her grave, and she was not able to tap into her true self from drinking that alcohol because it corroded her liver. It took her whole health. And even though the doctors were saying, oh, I'm not sure what is it, but she was retaining fluid. So retaining fluid, then that means your liver is not working the way how it should because of the corrosion to everything that happened there. Every time we raise a glass and you think that you're being social, you're participating in centuries old tradition and control. So every time you pick up a glass to drink alcohol, that's what you're doing. The Bible does say that a little bit of alcohol is good for the stomach. But in another section, he tells us not to get drunk with wine. In 28:8, drinkers' tables are covered with vomit and filth. Yes, and this is true because we know that there are a lot of people that when they overdrink, they start to throw up and they start to think. And there's some young people that get alcohol poisoning because they just drank too much and they get alcohol poisoning. And all of these things we know. So alcohol causes people to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And that's true. Because when I used to drink, I used to get brave. And one thing my grand said is that a drunken man reveals a sober mind. And that is so true. Because whatever you might be feeling on the inside that you would like to do, when you drink alcohol, the alcohol allows you to be able to be brave enough to do it. And I used to get brave. There are times because for me, I felt as though that was helping me, which it wasn't, because I was in the middle of a bad divorce. I had gotten, it was just so much going on for a couple of years in my life there. When weekends come, you see Friday come, I would go to the club. They used to have a live band and things like that, and that's where you go and you feel comfortable with everybody that's doing the same thing that you're doing and you want to do, because you feel as though you feel as though it is making you feel better, but it's not making you feel better. What it is taking away your energy, and it is dumbing down your pineal gland, which people would call the third eye. I don't normally talk about these things a lot because, and the reason I didn't used to talk about them a lot is because I was brainwashed by religion to think that there were certain things that were bad, and that was one of the things that you were taught, to think that it was bad. And I've since come to realize that, and I've had many videos like this telling y'all they are lying to us. They have always been lying to us. This is something that came down through the generations. This is an old spirit. This is nothing new. This is an old spirit. And they've all been lying to us, and they're lying to us so that they can control us and we can basically do what they want us to do. Because in Barbados we have a very nice cocktail that we have in Barbados called the Bajan Rum Punch. And my other channel, I showed people how I didn't really drink any. I took a sip, but I didn't really. And I showed people how to make that Beijing rum punch. Yes, and that is because I was sharing the culture of Barbados. And that is an excellent cocktail that is made with different juices and stuff like that. You can put like the natural juices and things like that, and just with the alcohol, and then you put that over some ice, and it is basically great. So there are a lot of people out there that are still drinking. So you share things with them, but you try to still get them to realize, well, you know, drinking too much is not good or something like that. But as I said, the word says that you can have a little bit of alcohol for your um, body. And then another question that I was asked was, then if we are not supposed to drink, why did Yahusha turn water into wine? But how? No, the question there, that's a good question. A very good question. So, because he did turn water into wine, because I, I was thinking that a lot myself. But I somehow think that the wine that he turned that into was was not like strong alcoholic wine. I don't know, I wasn't there. But that's a very good question. And for those of you that might have the answer for me, you could list it in the description box. Or not the description box, the comment, sorry. Uh, we look at all the pictures, and I know growing up, yeah. And as I said, I watched a lot of TV, and in every movie that you could see that they're really pushing the whole alcohol thing. And they're really pushing this alcohol thing because alcohol is a big seller. It's a big seller. So, so, and the thing about it, you drink a lot of alcohol, it dumbens you down, it makes you sick, it affects your body because you think, oh, I get joy, I feel so happy, I feel so happy, I feel so joyous. And that used to be me dancing, and I feel good, and I dancing, and then couple hours down the thing, I'm crying my heart out, and don't know why I am crying my heart out. And looking at this whole research that I did and how it affects your body and everything, I realized why I was crying. Right? So we look at these pictures in that Hollywood produces and how they're advertising how good it is to drink. Because that's not the only thing. I remember saying, well, I come from a family of alcoholics anyway. My mother was an alcoholic. My father was an alcoholic. So I can be an alcoholic too. Why? No, you have to break that. You have to break that generational curse that is coming down through the generations in your family. Because if all of us try to break those curses that come down in our families, and we do not continue to get involved in the whole alcoholic thing, you know what will happen? There are so much of us that our vibrations, where the Heavenly Father or where he wanted us to go, our vibrations will go back in alignment with where it's supposed to go. And therefore, the earth, because right now we can see that the earth is literally crying out. The earth is just exploding against itself. And that's because of all the negative energy that we are putting into this place. So if a lot of us put that positive energy out, you know what will happen? You know what will really happen? There is so much that will happen if we put this positive energy out. I hope that you are enjoying this topic as much as I am enjoying bringing this topic to you, because honestly speaking, I wish I knew all this information years ago. So let's let Hollywood stop pulling that wool over our eyes, because that wool making you think that it is an accident that they have. Look, I make tinctures, and a lot of times I don't make my tinctures with glycerine or apple cider vinegar or anything like that, because I don't like neither one of those. So I think that the glycerine is too sweet. I think the apple cider vinegar is too acid. So I do my tinctures with vodka. And that's because vodka, basically, my vodka that I use is 6 times distilled. And vodka really is tasteless and odorless. But the little dropperfuls that you would put in your tea or your juice or something like that. And for those of you that know about making tinctures are made from herbs and stuff like that, because I am into the herbalism and all of that. So when we're talking about the mind, soul, and body, we're talking about the body with the herbs and everything. And the mind, we need to reprogram our mind and our soul. Our soul is the spiritual soul, the spiritual part of things, where we could either lose our soul, or we could gain it, and we could think. So we don't want to lose our soul. So we are talking about something here now that can cause you basically to lose your soul, and that is alcohol. So when we look at these movies, and they have the bottles turned to a certain thing so that the people on the screen can see what kind of alcohol they're pouring and things like that. You got to remember that these things are not done by accident. They're done to program us, and it is a mental thing, because when people see them using these kind of alcohol in the movies and things like that, people might say, "Oh, I gotta go and buy it. I gotta go and buy that. Maybe that tastes really good. I gotta go and buy that." So, so they would go and buy that brand, and that's because these alcohol places, they put money into the movies for advertising, for them to advertise their drinks and things like that. And sometimes you think these people does really be drinking these things. These people don't be drinking these things. They might take a sip of it for the shot or the little clip that they're doing at the point in time. But then they put it right there and that's the end of that. But you know what? They've already programmed the masses to think that, ooh, this drink is a cool drink. I gotta get that. I gotta get that. You know? So it is. I know that I'm drinking this all the time because it just tastes so good. It just tastes so good. Yeah. So basically, Hollywood have been pulling a wool over our eyes for, for so much years. And it is time to wake up. We need to wake up.